Greetings from LA, my dear friends, and this is Daisuke, and I am so happy and so excited to be joined today by a very special guest, and his name is Danny Smith. And Danny Smith and I have been speaking offline about cinema, about art, about acting, and about this great, grand, and wonderful topic called cinema. And we've enjoyed the conversations, or at least I have. And so I thought, wouldn't it be nice to share the conversations with you, my dear friend? So I've invited Danny, and he very kindly said yes to the invitation. So here we are. So Danny, welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me. Of course, I said yes. I'm a huge fan of yours, a huge supporter, of course. As you know, I've watched many of your videos, hundreds of hours at this point. And it was nice to touch base on Instagram, sort of catch up a little bit, and it's a real thrill to be here. It's great to finally meet, sort of face to face.
Yes, in the virtual sphere, so to speak. But yes,
Yes.
I think maybe before we get into our conversation in earnest, because I want to know about you and your background and your cinema journey, as it were, because there's a lot of ground I wish to cover, and already from what I know, so many things there in terms of cinema that's very interesting, but yet to we have just for me anyway. I can't wait to hear about it some more. But before we get into it, so Danny, you spoke about Instagram, so maybe just as a starter, you have an Instagram account, and I think you, among other things, showcase your artwork. So maybe that might be a good starting point. Could you tell us a little bit about your artwork and what it is that you're engaged with, at least in this sphere, Danny?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Danny Smith X, and you can find my artwork there. There's a lot of cinema related artwork, so I guess that's topical for our discussion. And I just sort of do a lot of portraits of actors or scenes from films that I enjoy. And really, it's just for me. It's not with any other mindset other than just to it's like another outlet. Like discussing films is something I love to do, and then we think about them all the time, right? So it's fun to paint them as well. And I'll do acrylic paintings or digital artwork or sometimes collage, like a mixed media piece. And I work every day at it and make something new every day, or I'm in the process of making something new every day. And yeah, it's just it's all one thing. Like I love watching movies and then I'll see something and it could be the color of pomegranates or something obscure and I'll want to paint an image from that. Or it could be, Raging Bull or a more conventional or a more popular title. And then I'll go off and do a whole series of Robert De Niro films. And, one piece sort of leads to the next.
Yeah, I saw it's very impressive, and I think I saw, for instance, you mentioned De Niro, Rupert Pupkin
Yes.
and other Scorsese films. So is this how should I put it? As an artist, how do you create these works which are, I guess, capturing maybe an image or the spirit of a film that you've just seen or have a knowledge of? How does that work? Do you do that from memory, or do you take a still image and then you work from the still image? Give us a little bit of insight into your method and your process. I'm very
Yes.
interested in this.
Well, I love that you chose Rupert Pupkin as the standout character because I feel like that film is so underappreciated. I love the King of Comedy. I love so much for so many reasons, of course, especially to see De Niro going out of his comfort zone, and I think it's hysterical. I think it's uncomfortable, which is part of its charm as well, of course. And I wish everybody would see it. I think you know, it's been said a lot that the film Joker, the recent one with Joaquin Phoenix, borrows a lot from that and from
Yeah.
Taxi Driver, which it does. That was my first impression upon seeing Joker in the theater. I was like, man, this is Taxi Driver meets King of Comedy. So I hope people go back and see that because I think it's a gem. It's great. Um, And so to answer your question, sorry, I went off on a whole Rupert Pupkin thing, but to answer your question, yeah, I work from a still image. My memory is not good enough to do likenesses like that, unless I'm doing a more expressive piece. Like if I'm doing a more, expressionistic art where it could be a little wilder and looser, then I can do, a Marlon Brando and make it more rugged, and that's just kind of, I'm still looking at images, I suppose, but I'm not like adhering to, nailing the dimensions or really trying to capture a photograph likeness. It's a different kind of thing. And if it's collage, I mean, I'll use like watch faces for eyes or different things like that. And I like to hop from medium to medium. I guess I get bored just doing acrylic paintings, I'll do a dozen of those or a series of those, and then I'll want to, do collage or drawings or different things or pencil crayon or whatever. So it keeps it interesting for me, and I like the feeling of watching a new film and being like, oh, I want to paint that, or even an old film like, a film like Vertigo came up somewhere as like the best film of all time, and I like Hitchcock, and but Vertigo is not my very favorite of his, and I always wondered, why is that considered like the greatest film of all? Let me revisit that. So I had to go back and watch it again, and it is excellent, of course, as you know, as everybody knows. But an image of Kim Novak with the green curtains behind her, I was like, I want to paint that. So I did that piece, and then I thought, well, I really, North by Northwest might be my favorite. So then I wanted to do an image of that, and all of a sudden I'm off and running doing a series of Psycho and Rear Window and different Hitchcock pieces, and I'll exhaust a good portion of his filmography, and then I'll want to move on to another, another director's work or actor's work.
Oh, that's really cool. That is really cool, Danny. I will, of course, provide the link to your Instagram and any other social media that you want. I'll leave a link in the description box of this video below for anyone who is interested to join and to take a look and to see what kind of artwork you have. This is really, really, really exciting. So
Thank you so much.
I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist, so I don't know the process. I can only marvel at people who have this great talent. So
it amazes
and
me.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, I'm so eager. I'm so overzealous. It amazes me you're not an artist because you're such an intellectual, and I feel like you're so knowledgeable and about films and music and literature, which I really appreciate, by the way. I gravitate towards people like that, and they're few and far between these days. But I feel like you could be an artist. Even the way you speak and your articulation, you're so, or not your articulation, but your vocabulary. I feel like you could be an artist. You have a very creative mind, I think. So it surprises me to hear that.
Oh, you're very kind. You're very kind, Danny. I wish I could say I was artistically inclined, but I dabbled a little bit in animation, stop motion animation, many years ago. But I discovered I had no talent, and so but that's very kind of you to say, and I think also I'm very respectful of the artistic process. Because I can only imagine just the types of choices that you need to make, the effort, and sometimes or maybe a lot of times it's a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of resources and money and the like. So it's stuff that very I don't know that much about, but I'm very much respectful of the process and people who are able to do this. So. And not to mention, of course, you have that cross-referenced with another kind of common ground or common love that we have, which is for this thing called cinema. So
yes.
You've mentioned already, I think, Hitchcock, Scorsese. You've mentioned Color Pomegranates as an example. Maybe this could be a great way to go into or segue into your cinema journey. I suppose maybe before we get into your stops along the way, as I like to call it, at the moment, what are some of your favorite movies?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
you don't have to rank them. I'm so sorry for me to put you on the spot, but just if you had to pick a few of them at random, what would be
Of
some of them
course.
right now?
Of course. I mean, you know how difficult this question is. It's like, what's your favorite song? I mean, my gosh.
Yeah,
I couldn't name my
yeah.
favorite Beatles song, even if we pared it down to just the beat. I'm a massive Beatles fan, by the way. Um,
Oh,
I mean, I couldn't even pick my favorite Beatles album. This is a difficult question, but of course, um, a few come to mind. Of course, one of the biggest ones for me is "In the Mood for Love," Wong Kar-wai. Um, Massive Wong Kar-wai fan. Massive. I think that film is so special. I mean, my gosh, we could spend 2 hours just discussing that film and dissecting it. Every aspect of it, the music, the cinematography, the performances, the wardrobe, the mood, the romance, the melancholy, the years past, the contextual, the historical context, um, the way that film was made and the difficulties
yeah,
making it.
yeah,
I mean, my gosh, it's on the highest echelon for me personally. It gives me chills.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a big one for me. I'm sure you're a fan of it as well. I know a lot of
yeah.
people are, of course. Um, yeah, Wong Kar-wai. I mean, Fallen Angels. I saw Chungking Express back in the '90s, and that was a big awakening for me on my journey. Um, it was so fresh and vibrant and different, just visually different, structurally different. How he sort of has that first story, and then he seems to abandon it and go into the next half of the film and keeps you guessing. I mean, I love his films. I love him, and I look forward to everything he does in the future, of course. And I'm the kind of guy who directors are the people I look to, like a painter. If you see Picasso and you see his Cubist paintings, there's so much more before and after that in his catalog that you want to see everything. So if it's Wong Kar-wai, I have to go back to the beginning. I want to see every commercial he shot, every short film, and I like to go through chronologically and see everything. So I'm a huge film nerd like that. But In the Mood for Love for sure is up there. Um, Gosh, there's so many. You'd have to give me a genre. I mean, romantic films, even thinking about romance. A silly film like Before Sunrise, I think is amazing. It was very special to me. I saw that at the right age. I was like 21 years old. I saw it in the theater on a date. I wanted to be Ethan Hawke from there on after. I bought the three-quarter length leather jacket. Um, and seeing I think I see an Eric Romero box set behind you, and I feel like Before Sunrise
Uh,
is
yeah.
the best Romero film Romero didn't make, almost, if that makes
Oh,
sense,
interesting.
right?
It does. It does. Yes.
Um,
Oh, well
yeah,
done.
gosh, so many. I mean, romance. I mean, I don't know why I'm sticking with romance. I think Amelie is an underappreciated film, even though it was a commercial,
Yeah.
an obvious film. I think Amelie, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, also
Yeah.
everything about it, the editing, cinematography, color grading, the palette, the performances, the structure, everything it's so magical. And um, I mean, all that said, I love movies like RoboCop and whatever also. So don't just
Mm.
pigeonhole me in the sort of romantic, fantastical thing I'm just thinking about right now. But um, I love Mikhail
Oh, that's
Haneke. I love Abbas Kiarostami. I love
great.
lots of people. So
Well, that's wonderful. You have
yeah,
a wide range, it seems like. And Wong Kar-wai you mentioned, or In the Mood for Love you mentioned, which is a very special film. And you I think hit the nails on the heads in terms of all the points you raised. Very, very succinctly and on apropos. Well done. I'm also a big fan of that film. And then you mentioned also Linklater work. Right, I remember when that was released. It felt like it felt like. Um, I mean, no one knew about the trilogy, right? No one knew
right.
that there would be another film. It just felt like
Yes,
a teenage rom com when you saw the trailer. It had the thing with Ethan Hawke and the speech with Julie Delpy on the train. Now, here's what we're going to do about, the fast talk that he does because he's nervous, but he wants to invite her out on the day.
Yes.
And so that felt like it felt like part of the American independent film atmosphere of the time. And so you had maybe fast talking dialogue, clever, witty stuff that was a la maybe Tarantino, Pulp Fiction, post aftermath, that kind of thing. But it went in this really almost surprising, shocking direction. And now we know what the rest of the story is with the films that appeared after that. But you're right, that was a big surprise, I think, for a lot of people, myself included, when that emerged on the scene.
Yes, it was a
Um,
great surprise. I love the long
yeah,
takes, the walk and talks, the philosophy. I was that kind of kid, like reading those kinds of books and interested in sort of, you know, the metaphysical or existentialism or Albert Camus and just like, what is
yeah,
life and all these things. And that film hit hard. And I loved the ending. You mentioned the subsequent films, and it took me years to go back or to go see those films because I didn't want the first one tarnished. I so much love the ending of the first Before Sunrise,
yeah,
where
yeah.
the audience doesn't know, will they come back and visit again or won't they? And I
That's
like
right.
that sort of ambiguous ending or open-ended conclusion in quotes. Um,
Mm.
and so it hurt my heart a little bit when they came back for the next two. That said, I think they did an excellent job with the next two, and I was pleased to see that they didn't destroy the legacy of the first one or any of that stuff. They did a good job.
It's interesting you mentioned that because it does bring up an interesting possibility, which is if you have a film and you know that the production history subsequent was such that there were sequels or things that followed afterwards. I think there is also the possibility of not considering those sequels and just regarding that first film or the one film almost in isolation.
Hmm.
Um, because I think that's a really one of the special things about uh, uh, Before Sunset, and on all the films really. The first and the second film. I mean, the special thing about them was that you didn't know what was going to happen.
Hmm.
They didn't come in a trilogy box set.
Correct.
So when you watch the first film and it ends, you're right. We have no idea what's going to happen, and it's
Hmm.
like there's not going to be another film, right? So
Yeah.
until there was another film, so in that way, the expectations that maybe or maybe will they or will they not be able to meet after they depart, it becomes a sort of a kind of an eternal question. But that unknown is one of the magical qualities of it. You're absolutely right. And so in many ways, maybe just keeping it as is, even if you know that there's a film afterwards, maybe keeping it as is its own little special thing. And
Yes.
I think that's possible to view a film like that, even in this day and age, with all the information and all the stimulus. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Please go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Um, I was just
No,
gonna
no,
say,
please.
yes, I can compartmentalize. I mean, I do that with the original Star Wars trilogy. To me,
Mm.
that trilogy exists, and that's all there is, and I don't need to think about the films that came later. And people can enjoy them, and I love that. I want people to enjoy films. That's what we want, and that brings me joy. Um, but for me, it's just those three, and I can separate, and I can still see the new films, Rise of Skywalker, what have you, and enjoy my popcorn. But I can separate it too. So Before Sunrise, I can separate that. And I mean, I was white knuckling it through Before Sunset. I was so nervous about it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
please, and Before Midnight, I think is excellent. I think that's also a very
yeah,
Eric Romer type film. Um,
yeah. That's a
but
really good
uh,
point. Yeah.
but yeah, and Ethan Hawke will. I mean, those Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy will always be Jesse and Celine to me. I
Yep.
can see Training Day. It's a great performance by Ethan Hawke, but and I think I feel like they are there's so much. I don't know them at all in real life, but I imagine of any character they've played, they're probably most like the characters in the Before trilogy, because I know they had such a
Possibly.
hand in writing it and
That's
coming
right.
up with you know ideas of conversations and whatnot. So
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's a
Oh,
special
well
one
done.
to me.
Well
I'm glad you
done.
enjoy it
Well,
too, because as I was saying it, like, I don't know why it popped into my head as like one of my favorite films. Like, it might sound like an odd, like, simple choice. So I'm glad you appreciate it as well.
oh no, I love the film.
Mm,
I love the film immensely. You mentioned music a little bit earlier. I listen occasionally to the soundtrack is it's the first two films in kind of one combined soundtrack. I listen to that occasionally, so I really enjoy that very much. So, that's an excellent choice, and I love your connections with Romer as
mm,
well. Yes, thank you for noticing that I have
yeah.
the Criterion release of the Four Seasons tales on in fresh in my mind at the moment because I'm still very much overwhelmed by all of them. So
Mhm.
well done. So you mentioned before you leave here. So Romer, please feel free to mention a little bit about Eric Romer if you like.
Oh gosh, I mean, admittedly, the Four Seasons is maybe my least favorite collection
Mm,
or series of his films. Um, you know, I am a sucker for the Six Moral Tales and a few later films as well.
mm,
Um, but Claire's Knee, La Collectionneuse, Love in the Afternoon,
yeah.
especially. Claire's Knee is right in my wheelhouse. So is La Collectionneuse. That's exactly the kind of
Yeah.
film I like. These sort of human, intimate, small stories, relationships, set in a beautiful, in the Parisian countryside or French Riviera or in some manor or a villa, I should say. Like
Yeah.
La Piscine is a film I love, which sort of has
Yeah.
that setting as well. I don't know if it's just like a fantasy, like I'd love to vacation there or something. Uh, you know, but
Oh,
uh, but yeah, those Romare films are the ones I like. I mean, there's also later The Aviator's Wife and Full Moon in
yes,
Paris. Those are fun ones as well. Um, and what's the other set? The comedy and Proverbs.
that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yes.
So there's some nice ones in there too. But that whole like the French New Wave, and it got to the point where it's not even French New Wave into the later films, I guess. But Jean-Luc Godard, Francois Truffaut, Claude Chabrol, all those guys,
Mm,
I
mm.
love so much. Like Godard, like talk about cinema journey. Godard was one that was like knocked, and as an artist too, just knocked me out. And we can get into him at some point. Um, but yeah, yeah, I like those guys, and I'm curious. I imagine you'll do a discussion on the box set.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in the middle of just preparing that in my head. Just gathering that I have this ambitious at the moment while we're making this video. I have this ambitious plan. So just talking about that at the same time as talking about the Chantal Akerman set.
Oh
Also
yes,
talking about the heroic trio and the
yes.
execution. Yeah, so there's just so many things, so many sets to talk about. I already have a number of other videos in the can, as it were, so they're just waiting to be released. So, but just getting that in. But yeah, part of that will be the Romare films, the four films. I'm very
Yeah, I
excited
love
about that. So,
Executioners. I love the Heroic Trio. I
yeah,
love
yeah,
Chantal Akerman. I'd love to
good
hear
for
your
you.
thoughts on those films. Oh yeah, Saute ma vie, La
Yeah,
Chambre.
yeah,
Those
good
films,
for you.
or Je tu Hillel. Those films
Yeah,
really inspired me.
yeah,
I'm not even privy to or I'm not even aware of what's on that box set. I am familiar with the front cover of it, but I haven't
yeah.
inspected which films are included.
Well, the ones that you mentioned are included as well as others, but yeah, those are really dynamic films. Uh, you mentioned Ranger to Ilel. What one of the most how should I put it? Um, in many ways, it's one of the most intimate uh, portraits, and uh, incredibly intimate. And so there's a kind of almost and Chantal Ackerman in terms of the artist kind of taking center stage in a manner of speaking. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So
Yeah.
there's much to talk about with that. So
And hugely inspiring to me as, an artist, but also actor and,
yes,
I don't wanna say aspiring filmmaker, but, maybe I'm a guy who has pipe dreams about becoming a filmmaker, but extreme, like no budget, yet fully engrossing and captivating. I mean, just her on a mattress and eating sugar out of a bag, and just yeah, that I love her work. I love her
Yeah.
work. Very inspiring because it can be done in a day. You just like, let's do a 360 pan of a room. Um, just little art projects. I love those films, and her own
Yeah.
voice so unique. And I know now she's getting some good recognition with Jean Dielman, which is one I painted that as well. It's one of the best, and I like that. I was surprised to see it at #1 on the Sight and Sound poll, or was it the Sight and Sound poll? Yeah.
That's right.
Um,
Yes.
but that's great. Like, let's let more people discover her. So that was a nice
Yeah.
surprise.
Very, very, yes. Yeah, it'll be that's an incredible collection of films. So, Kierman is it's one of the best. But you're absolutely right in terms of many things that, as an artist and a filmmaker, she's able to pull together. You're absolutely right. So it's an incredible collection of films. But oh, this is great. I guess before we go, I have to. Then I can't resist, which is. Um, Godard. So,
Oh
what are some
yeah,
of the touchstone points for you for Godard? Some of the
my
films and some
goodness.
of the images or ideas.
Oh my gosh. It like his prime for me is. I mean, A Woman Is a Woman is one that. I mean, I love sort of the pop art color palette, everything. The talking to the camera. Who are you talking to? The audience, things like that.
Yeah,
Um, the charm of Jean-Paul Belmondo and his regular players, of course, but just there's philosophy infused in that, and the editing is insane. A Woman Is a Woman, made in USA. Two or three things I
mm,
know about her. I mean, there's so many. Vivre sa vie, like him and
yeah,
Truffaut coming out with the first ones I had seen were 400 Blows and of course Breathless, those two, and then from there you go to A Woman Is a Woman and all those other ones, and the Soft Skin, and the Truffaut,
yeah.
the Antoine Doinel series, where you know the kid from 400 Blows is all of a sudden doing many film. Talk about a Richard Linklater thing, like doing many films with
Yeah.
him.
Well done.
Those Bed and Board, Love on the Run, and Antoine and Colette, and those later films. I get a huge
Oh
kick
man,
out of that series.
it's a
Um,
great series. Yeah.
Pierrot Le Fou, and you know,
Yeah.
there's so many. Contempt is nice, but there's so many other ones I like even more than that, of course. So Godard's a huge guy for me as
Yeah.
far as dreaming of becoming a filmmaker. I'd love to do something like that, like having the music and then it just stops abruptly, and
Sure. Yeah.
and the opening credit sequences with large font and just sort of blasting on the screen, which someone like Gaspar Noé may have been inspired by for some of his later films. And
Hmm.
uh, yeah, those
Well
guys are
done.
really cool to me. Yeah.
Well done. Yeah, I think after watching Godard, like two or three things I know about her and other Godard films, that made me a coffee drinker. Like looking into my
Yeah.
coffee cup and seeing if there's like the meaning of the universe or something like that.
Yes.
But
Yes. And
but
that makes me
yeah,
think
yeah,
of.
yeah.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, please, please, please. You're on a roll. This is great.
Well, that just made me think of maybe certainly the milestone film in my life that was a huge turning point. Your coffee cup reference made me think of um, the film Blue by Krzysztof Kieslowski, or Ki
Oh yes, the
Kieslowski.
sugar. Yes, yes,
Yes. Oh my God, you're
yes, yes.
so knowledgeable.
No, no, no,
Um,
no. No.
you are, and I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that. I love that. I mean, you can go. I love that you can go from knowing the sugar cube to Mauser and Police Academy to oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you very
yeah,
much. Yeah. But yeah, Chislovsky's Blue. So please tell me about this. This is monumental for you. Wow.
truly, that's the one. That's the one. Um, before then, I think we're close in age. I might be like 5 years older than you. Um,
Okay, I was born in '79. So
73.
okay, okay.
Um, So I and sort of we were coming up, in the VHS video era, renting movies, taping movies off TV. I'd always get blank videotapes for Christmas, that whole thing, and recording everything off TV. And it was Star Wars and Gremlins and Ghostbusters and Goonies, and I loved the Rocky films growing up, and Batman with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, and all the movies that all the kids at that time loved, of course.
Yeah.
And then I started acting like in high school. Like by the time I'm 13, I'm already doing all the school plays and playing Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors, or Joseph and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, or
Oh,
Cowardly
cool.
Lion and Wizard of Oz, and all these things. So then I graduated into studying films uh, with actors who are considered the best actors. Like, so it went from Back to the Future being my favorite thing ever, which is still one of my favorite films, into let's study De Niro, let's study Pacino, let's study Dustin Hoffman. So I was consuming, you know, Sidney Lumet films at age 13, like Dog Day Afternoon and Serpico and Kramer
Wow.
versus Kramer and The Graduate, and in there too was a Brando era of On the Waterfront and Streetcar Named Desire, and James Dean, Giant, East of Eden. So all those sort of like actory movies when you're just you know wanting to enter that world, you want to study all these things. Gene Hackman and all these guys. And so I was at that level, I guess. And Blue comes into the picture because um, I had a TV in my bedroom. I was probably, I don't know how old, not young, young. Like I was, I don't know what year, 19 or 20 probably. And um, I had a TV in my bedroom, and we have a channel here in Toronto called City TV, and they had a show called Late Great Movies. Um, that sounds like I'm paraphrasing you. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies. But they had late great movies, and this was on at midnight, or in my memory, anyways. It was like 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 a.m. These films,
Yeah.
and this is pre-internet, of course, right? So you turn on the TV and flip channels and see what's on, and this film came on, Blue, and I didn't know what it was. It was already 10 or 15 minutes into the film, and the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life, Juliette Binoche, was on the screen, and the mood was so different than anything I'd ever seen before. And again, the editing and I'm a musician, and the film has an element of without spoiling things for people, there's let's say a composer element to it, or songwriting, or classical piece writing, I should say. And I was totally just just you know born into the next level of, wow, films can be like this. This is it was just hitting all of these things that I had read in books before, and had these kind of melancholic feelings, or you know just questioning life, or dealing with tragedies or things like that. But in a film, I hadn't seen that, and I thought it was, it's still one of my favorite films. So that was a huge turning point, and I didn't even know what it was called for years, until years later. I was at a video. It was probably Suspect Video downtown, which had more niche, obscure foreign films, or whatever you want to call them. And I
Hmm.
saw the cover on the shelf, and I was like, "That's that movie! That's the movie." I didn't know it was part of a loose trilogy or series of three films, the Three Colors, of course. And I mean, Juliette Binoche is still one of my favorites. I think she's supremely talented, so naturalistic, so raw, and so vulnerable on screen. Um, Sorry, I'm going on these long rants, but I love cinema.
No, that's great. That's great. No, no, it shows. This is great. I
Yeah,
love how you say she's the rawness and vulnerability. There's also a toughness and almost a kind of I don't what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? I'm not sure if it's on purpose. Maybe it is. There's almost a kind of a self-destructive nature to the character. I mean, the scene that always got, there's so many scenes in that film, that just like the way she eats candy, like just crunching the candy, and yeah, and then just ripping things off, like and then the one that always got me was when she's walking on the outside and she drags her knuckles
Yes.
across the wall. That was just, oh my goodness, what this is that's intense. But that's the sort of thing that was, how should I put it? It's like, it's, how can one understand or begin to understand what the depths of the feelings of another person can be, especially what happens to the character that Julie Binoche portrays in that film. We find out early on it's really, really significant, and a huge, huge event happens to her life, and we realize there are many things that happen to her life. But how can we get into the world? Because there's a way that her character is very almost impenetrable. She puts up a wall around her, in a manner of speaking. But there's some moments where you don't quite know what she's feeling, but at the same time, you know exactly, you can imagine exactly how that feels.
Yes.
The knuckles across the rocky wall there. So that's the kind of visceral impact that sort of thing has. So those are the sort of ways in, and because you can understand that feeling of hurt or pain, or almost a self-destructive nature, but it goes into many different facets, as you know, because it's a very complex character. That's a
Yeah.
really great choice. And then the sugar cube in the coffee cup, just dipping it, that's great. And
Yeah.
then the spoon, right?
Yes.
And the spoon, and the reflection off of
Yes.
the bent surface of the spoon there. Yeah, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Great memory. I'm so pleased. You
No,
you
no, no,
know
no,
you
not
know
at
very
all.
specific details. And yeah, the rubbing of her knuckles on the wall, it's like it's almost like deferred pain, you know?
Yeah, well done. Yeah,
And she doesn't even know, we don't know the depths of her tragedy, and she doesn't even know. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, fantastic, so well handled. He's such a master too, like Kieslowski, and you know, again, to paraphrase you, please forgive my poor pronunciation of the Polish language, but
Thank you.
Kieslowski, or
Thank you.
he's amazing. I mean,
Yeah,
Double Life of Veronique is another one I absolutely love. And talking about Amelie, I feel like I can see Double Life of Veronique and Amelie in the way it's shot and the color palette and a lot of the choices. So I like comparative analysis. I like comparing films, or comparing a film to a novel, or things like that. Those things excite me. Um,
that's great.
yeah,
Wow. So, and this is great because you mentioned it in the context of growing up, and your acting, and then studying acting, and discovering these films along the way. You mentioned some films already, but before we get into something into your career or professional aspects, what are some of those other uh, important films for you in your life growing up? And you mentioned one, which was Kieslowski's Blue. You
yeah,
mentioned some others. What were some others? Just
yeah,
an example of the and some further context. You mentioned the VHS era. So what were
yeah.
some of those other important ones for you growing up?
Absolutely. Well, I'm really lucky in that my parents loved watching films. Both my mother and my father. We would, like, every night for dinner, we'd watch a film. Um, like, for sure, my mom and I would watch a film, and these were, slightly more mature than maybe I was old enough to see, but not intense films, but things like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or All the President's Men, or The Sting, or something. And my dad and I would have kind of special Friday nights. And he had great taste. I didn't even realize it at the time, but he would come home. He would introduce me to these foreign films, like, um, John Woo's The Killer, he brought home, and John Woo's Hard Boiled, he brought home. And those had a huge impact on me because I hadn't seen films like that before. They were so, the word balletic is used, or operatic is used, but that's on the money. They were so over the top and just, visceral and exciting and fresh. He would bring home things like, um, like Subway by Luc Besson. That was like a new cool
Yeah,
thing to see. Or
yeah,
Delicatessen, thinking about Jean-Pierre Jeunet. And, the films were so different than Back to the Future or Indiana Jones, which I still love those films, and they will always have a special place in my heart. But yeah, so really, my mom and dad introduced me to a lot without even realizing it, and sort of fueled my passion for having a wide range of cinema, like world cinema, you know, which has continued on ever since. Like I still watch a movie or 3 movies a day if I'm not working, and I can't get enough. I mean, I feel like I've seen so many films. You've seen like you feel like you've seen so many films and own so many films. I'm envious of your collection, of course, and but there's still so many we have never seen. You know, it's an endless well of masterpieces we have yet to uncover, and so that's exciting for the future.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, this is cool. This is great. This is really great. And then the films in terms of a kind of a family almost activity or
Big
a way
time.
to yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful, Danny. And
And you know,
then
with like
as you mentioned,
Siskel, I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm so yeah. Go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, go for it. Yes, you were saying Siskel and Ebert. You were going to
Well,
say.
I'm just reminiscing about the dinner times. You know, it was back in a time
Yeah.
when we had Siskel and Ebert on TV and Entertainment Tonight, and I'm reading,
Yes,
you know,
that's
Premier
right.
Magazine and Rolling Stone, and getting a lot of education from magazines, and you know, reading
That's
interviews
right.
with directors. Like, oh, you know, 2001 is one of my favorite films, and I'd read something about Stanley Kubrick, and oh, he's recommending Spirit of the Beehive or
Wow.
Carlos Saura's Blood Wedding or whatever, and then I'd have to, some of those I wouldn't see for many years, but I always kept notes of all these films I wanted to see, you know? We didn't
Oh,
have the
well
internet. We
done.
couldn't just, yeah.
That's right. That's right. The Siskel and Ebert days, the TV
Yeah.
movie critics. Yes, and that was its own industry. It was really quite yeah. It was great to see it. The I remember they were so into the film Siskel and Ebert. They were so into the film Fargo. I
Mhm.
remember I was so excited about Fargo, I think, because they were really excited about Fargo.
Yeah.
It's like it's the best film of the year or something like they said this is it. This is the best film of the year and it was Fargo. And then when I saw that before I saw the film Fargo, that alone made me very excited. So those movie critics shows really, Siskel and Ebert in particular, those are really important. I'm so glad you mentioned, and also ones that they panned and trashed. I mean, those are now like just golden. You can watch those clips on
Yes.
YouTube. I think now I love
Yes.
watching those from time to
I
time.
do
They're
too.
fantastic.
I
Yeah,
do too.
it was very entertaining as well. So I'm glad you mentioned Siskel and Ebert. I was a big fan. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think Martin Scorsese says, about the king of comedy that he's like, you know, it was New Year's Eve and we were getting dressed and on TV was Siskel and Ebert and they said, this is the worst picture of the year. And that was sort of his, you know, entrance into the new year. I love your Scorsese impression too, with the, when he's speaking like he's had 12 Red Bulls and it got the shoulders going when he laughs. And,
Thank,
yeah.
thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I love the one too where I think it was Roger Ebert and Martin Scorsese was a guest, right? And they were talking about their favorite films of the decade or something. In '90s, and Roger Ebert said, "Oh, Goodfellas is on my," and he's like, he gives the mic over to Scorsese. So, okay, why don't you talk about? There's a moment where Scorsese is like, you really want me to talk about this in this, that kind of thing. It was wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. I think you can still watch that on YouTube. So, oh, this is fantastic. This is
And
fantastic. But
especially without the,
yeah.
especially
Go ahead.
without
Go,
the,
please, yeah.
especially with, you know, Scorsese, you know, having to encapsulate it into a 30-second soundbite for
Yeah,
television. Like he didn't have a long interview format like you and I have here, you know. So
yeah.
he's like, I have to talk about my own. Yeah,
Must have been
that's
agony
very
for him, but
funny.
he did
Yeah,
it really well. So I mean, it's a great film too. So Goodfellas. So
Goodfellas
um,
is, you know, if aliens landed on Earth and said, show us a film that, you know, exemplifies all the tricks and tools you can use in filmmaking in a successful film, I'd show them Goodfellas. I think Goodfellas is obviously such a masterpiece,
yeah,
and it just has everything. He was just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
It is just a tour de force. It is. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Taxi Driver and Raging Bull in that era as well, of course. But Goodfellas is another one that's super super special to me,
Yeah.
and I even like Casino, in which people compare it, but I find Casino to be extremely enjoyable to watch. I've seen it tons of times, many times.
Yeah.
Um, and Scorsese's filmography is just almost unparalleled. I mean, he's got so many in there. He's, inarguably one of the best American directors ever, and I think he's still going. I think he's working on another film or two as we speak. So
Oh,
always
really?
looking
Oh,
forward to that.
that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
That's amazing. You mentioned De Niro and studying De Niro's performances a little bit earlier. I loved where I loved how in the film Goodfellas, they're around the kitchen table, right? With
yeah.
and then Catherine Scorsese is there as well, right? And they're talking about taking the knife, and I think they cut to De Niro, and De Niro, what is it? They're trying to figure out what the part of the animal is, and he says the hoof. I
Yes,
love how he says, "Oh yeah, the hoof."
yes,
Yeah. Scorsese takes the time to like cut to De
yes,
Niro, and then it's De Niro just by himself in the front. No, yes, it's hoof, hoof.
yes,
Yeah. So I love that. It's great. Yeah,
yes. It is a
absolutely great.
single. It's a single
Yeah,
shot. Yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. It takes it from the wide and then goes right into De Niro,
Yeah,
right? So you're absolutely right. Yeah,
and they
for
show
just for
her,
that line. Yeah,
and they show her
yeah,
painting. It's like, hey, it looks like someone we know.
yeah.
It looks like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. Oh, you're absolutely. Oh, that's a great choice. Yeah. But and then so this I also want to touch upon too. So now you're right. You're studying acting. You're an actor. You're an artist. You're a musician, and this is also very much coinciding with your love of cinema. And it's very very evident that you have this great love of cinema, seeing so many these wonderful films. Your grasp of these films is fantastic, by the way. And so tell me a little bit then too about because I also know based on I think on a comment that you left behind on one of the videos. You're also you mentioned acting when you're in school, but you also have a professional acting career as well. So would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
It must have been on your La Bamba video, the Lou
Yes,
Diamond
that's
Phillips
right.
comment, possibly.
That's right. Yes.
Um, yeah, I had the great fortune of doing a film with Lou Diamond Phillips and Mark Wahlberg called The Big Hit. I expect your video discussion any day now on that classic. um, yeah, Lou Diamond was great. Mark Wahlberg was great. They were both extremely generous and super welcoming. And even a little thing like, when an actor does his, let's say Mark Wahlberg's getting his close up and I'm off
Hmm.
camera, then they come around on me, and often that other actor will disappear and go to his trailer and not even participate, or you're acting to a tennis ball or whatever, right? Um, but Mark Wahlberg was there, giving 100%. Um, and I remember a year later, I was walking down the street with a girl in Young Street, walking up Young Street, and I hear "Bah, bah, 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 Danny," bah, 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 bah," and it was Mark Wahlberg and his friends driving by, and I felt like the cool. I was like, if that doesn't secure a second date, I don't know what will. Um, it didn't.
Okay. Okay.
But Lou Diamond was great too. After the first date, like my character had like a bunch of prosthetic zits on his face. I was the video store nerd, always the nerd, and kind of funny. I was working in a video store, regarding our
Hmm.
conversation right now, but and I was in the makeup chair after finishing work, and they were taking off the zits, and I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I looked up, and it was Lou Diamond with a beer for me. He said, "Good job, buddy." And that
Oh
kind of,
wow.
assuaged any fears. And actually, on that set, um, Chow Yun Fat visited, and that
What
was,
is? Wow. Wow.
yeah, that was a huge thrill. I mean, because John Woo produced the film, and Chow Yun Fat visited, and it was just like, and I'm just this kid from Toronto, and here's all these famous people, and someone I used to watch movies with my dad, an actor who was in films that I would watch with my dad. And he's such a charming, stud of a guy. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, I mean, there's tons of stories from acting days and different experiences, and I've been lucky enough to work on many projects and work with tons of great people. Kirsten Dunst or Jeremy Renner and I did our first film together. Uh, National Lampoon's Senior Trip. And
Oh
we had a
wow.
blast. We shot for like 50 days together. We became fast friends. Got to shoot in Toronto, got to shoot in Washington, D.C. When the film wrapped, he encouraged me to move to LA, so I did, and I stayed with him for a while. And I stayed with Tara Sharondoff, who was an actor in the film, who has gone on to be a voice actor on things like Powerpuff Girls and
Oh wow.
Harley Quinn and My Little Pony and a bunch of things.
Oh wow.
Um,
That's awesome.
but those were good times, yeah. And Jeremy Renner's amazing. He's a super cool dude, and he's gone to stratospheric heights, right? Like he's A-list, and he deserves every pat on the back. He deserves all the fulsome praise. He was also a true film lover and a true
Really?
studier of the yes, a true
Wow.
studier of the craft. Like he wasn't just a pretty boy who wanted to be famous, which I think is the case for a lot of people, especially nowadays. And he really studied the craft. He was making his own little short films, like just like video camera, like practice films on his own. And he did his homework. So I'm rooting for him always.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love how you have like it's like every aspect is in terms of this sort of artistic perspective. It seems to be the acting perspective, musician perspective, and sort of cinema and cinema appreciation, also art and visual media, etc. It's all these check boxes that are being checked off for you, my friend. This is incredible, absolutely incredible. I am
Jack of
very
all trades,
impressed.
master of none, perhaps. But
I am very impressed. This is really cool.
oh
This is
wow.
really. Is there how should I put it? When you in terms of performances, let's stay with acting here for a second here. Again, I'm not an actor, so I'm asking very much from someone who is on the audience side, not knowing so much about the craft. I've heard a couple things, but I have my own actors and performances that I really appreciate and enjoy. But what are some of those special performances for you, acting performances, actors, maybe even moments in a performance, gestures? What are some of those moments for you that for you as from the actor's perspective? What is it that that sings to you? What are those moments
Hmm.
that sing to you? And what are you looking for when you maybe encounter a performance, when you watch a film, or when you're working on the set or on a stage, etc.? What are some of those examples or things about acting and performance for you?
Hmm. That's a good question. Um, I can appreciate the most over the top performances. I can appreciate the most internal, subtle performances. I've
Hmm.
often said my all-time favorite performance is Jack Nicholson in The Shining. I think it's such a delicious. I mean, that
Wow.
to me is an actor having fun. That is an actor having fun and just taking the leash off of somebody and letting them go wild, but it's calculated. Um, I mean, every shot he has a different expression on his face, different body language, different vocal intonations. It's so delicious to me, and I know The Shining is a film I think you're grappling with a bit in terms of, um, like you, I don't see it as a scary movie or a horror movie.
Oh,
It's not.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah,
a
I did mention
comedy.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't mean to imply you're grappling with anything. You know what I mean? I just think you're trying to. I mean, it's a film that everyone's trying to figure out, and that's
Yeah.
you're not alone. Everybody
Yeah.
feels that way.
Yeah, thank you so much for remembering that. I did mention that. I don't consider it like I don't consider it like it doesn't scare me.
No.
But I have seen it. I have seen it so many times. It really it's mesmerizing. I think I don't know if I've mentioned this before. My one my I don't have that many shining stories, but my one of the shining stories I have is, when I was growing up and I was yeah, I guess I was just out of school, maybe still in my 20s, and I would be maybe in America or in Japan, but sometimes even when I was in Japan, I would be with people who would be, say, English speakers. So speaking English would be part of how we would converse. So if there would be maybe some a date or some maybe kind of a romantic situation or something like that, maybe walking along the street, I remember I said something came up in conversation. And I was just joking or something, and I said in the Jack Nicholson voice, "Oh, thank you so much. You are the light of my life." And I said it that way, and they were looking at me like, what why are you saying it in this weird voice? So they didn't know The Shining. So that was probably a huge red flag. If they didn't get that, I probably should have walked away right there. But
Yeah.
oh well. Oh, I mean, not everyone should. It's not a prerequisite. Everyone should know The Shining. But I
Oh,
think that
that's awesome.
if they had gotten it, I think I would have. Oh, that would have been maybe a sign. But oh well.
Oh,
Oh
yes.
well. Yeah. The light of my life. Yes.
Yeah, the light of
So.
my life.
So I guess and he does this like light of my life. Yeah, I can't quite do
Yes.
it, but
And if she had mocked swinging a baseball bat at you, I mean, you just get down on one knee at that point.
perhaps, but oh well, maybe it wasn't meant to be. But yes, I'm so glad you mentioned The Shining in that way. Jack Nicholson's performance is just it's great. I love it. It's right. That's what is it when Steven Spielberg is talking about how he talked about with Stanley Kubrick about great performances, and he asked Stanley Kubrick, who do you think are some of the great performances? He mentions James Cagney. And so and he thinks right, and I think that right, James Cagney is the greatest actor, and so that's why Jack Nicholson's performance is brilliant in The Shining. So I think that link between James Cagney and Jack Nicholson, I never made that link, but once I made that link, it all fell into place.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
that choice.
That dialogue between the two of them. And I think Spielberg's initial reaction was he thought Jack was over the top, which most of North America did feel that way, understandably, especially coming off of, if you're a fan of the novel, it's a different interpretation. Even Wendy is a very different character from the novel. But the casting is brilliant. Shelley Duvall deserves praise as well. Great foil for Jack, or vice versa, whichever way you want to look at it.
Interesting.
Great casting, and Stanley Kubrick is the king. I mean, he's next level. The Shining is maybe my favorite film. 2001, Barry Lyndon. I mean, his whole filmography. And then you forget things like Clockwork Orange or Eyes Wide Shut or Paths of Glory or the earlier films. What a special, concise contribution to cinema he delivered.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I think I'm not a filmmaker and I'm not an artist like you, but were I ever to be a filmmaker, I would want my last film. I would want my last film in my filmography to have the same last line of dialogue.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew
that. Eyes Wide Shut. Yes, Eyes Wide Shut. Have that. That would be a dream come true if I were a filmmaker. That would be I would want my last film to have the last line of dialogue in Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
What a great way
to end.
What a great. What a great. That's just like pure Kubrick. Genius.
Yes,
absolutely genius. You wouldn't have it any other way. Yeah.
That's a blackjack dealer at a table who's saying, "I'm done my shift."
Yes, that's right. That's right. Oh, that's great. Oh, well done. Oh my goodness. And
I love Eyes Wide Shut. I took my I saw Eyes Wide Shut in the theater,
Oh yeah,
went
yeah.
back the next night and took my parents. I just said, "You've got to see this," you know, and it also didn't receive the greatest acclaim at the time, but I now I think
That's right.
there's sort of a I don't know, people are looking at it again and reassessing it and appreciating it for its merits.
That's right. That's right. I remember. Well done. Yes, I remember too. There was a lot of right. I think very appropriately. There's a lot of press at the time of its initial release about this was right. Right, Stanley Kubrick's film, and then of course the news about Stanley Kubrick and his passing, and so this there was a lot of buzz, right? And of course, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, who were still they were still together, right, at the time that this was released. Although I think they had would very soon afterwards they would separate, I think, but that was also a very big deal, and so. But I think you're right. There was a little bit of a initial maybe bewilderment or disappointment, I think, voiced from a number of critics, etc. But that tide has definitely turned, I would say, as well, in the film's favor as time has passed. But I think Kubrick's films, I don't know how you feel, but Kubrick's films, at least for me, have that kind of effect on me. I think upon first watch, when I saw a Kubrick film back in the day, it would be very bewildering, but as time progresses, I might see it and appreciate it more. I don't know how you feel uh, about
I
Kubrick films,
agree.
or maybe you watched them and you gravitated towards them immediately. I'm not sure what was your approach to, for example, Kubrick films.
Yeah, I gravitated towards them immediately because they were so, you know,
Mm.
indefinable and unsettling, and you're confused by them, and you feel like you've seen something great, but you can't quite articulate it or even explain what you've seen. And
Yeah.
it's like Mikhail Haneke says, you know, a film. He likes his films to be like a ski jump, you know, and it's the audience's choice to take off and go on a flight of their own after they've seen the film, and that's why Kubrick's films are still dissected today and analyzed and debated over, and there's so many discussions about them because he gave us so many juicy morsels to chew on and think about and interpretations and to explore and um, yeah, and I think Eyes Wide Shut also at the time took so long to make. I mean, it was over 2 years, I think. And I feel like, well, I know it was promoted as being this like hot and
Yes.
sexy thriller between real life romantic partners, and so people were expecting this blue movie, perhaps, and it wasn't that. So maybe people were disappointed, and you know, but yeah, Kubrick films. I
Yeah.
mean, you can see them 30 times, and there's still so much to. And he's so playful, you know, like talking about The Shining, where he would, you know, have a chair in the back of a shot and then remove it when they cut
Yeah.
back and put it back in, and all those kind of playful things.
Right.
Or the lighting doesn't make sense, or the geography of the hotel isn't logical. There's windows where they've already established there's a hallway behind it. I mean, all this has been discussed ad nauseum,
Yes.
but it
Yes.
makes it fun to explore, especially for new viewers, like anybody out there who's 16 years old getting into film. He's a fun guy to explore.
Yeah. That's right. I agree. I look forward to. Yeah, I remember. Right. I mean, these discovering these filmmakers back in the day, and then just devouring all the films I could find. And it was a little bit of a challenge with some filmmakers before the DVD and Blu-ray and 4K age that we are now in, and streaming, not to mention streaming, but it was a little bit of a difficulty trying to find some of these films, track them down. Not for all filmmakers, actually there were quite a few filmmakers that were difficult to track down. But Kubrick tended
Yes.
to be fairly accessible for me growing up. But those are really great days.
Yeah, like even
What? Yeah, please. Oh, go ahead, please. I
I'm always
apologize.
interrupting you. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to
No,
sound
no,
impatient
it's
or
okay.
rude. Please forgive me. I'm
No,
just
no, not at all,
excited. I'm
not at all.
excited by the conversation. Um, but even like Fellini, you know, I got into him early, but Blockbuster, for example, would only have La Dolce Vita an 8.5. Um,
Hmm,
you know, maybe, I mean, that might even have been it. So it took,
yeah,
you know, years later to finally find Satyricon, Juliet of the Spirits, and these later films. Um, And actually, in that time after working with Jeremy Renner on Senior Trip, and I moved to LA, they screened a lot of movies at these art house theaters in LA that we didn't have here. So I got to see Juliet of the Spirits on the big screen, and it was so exciting, to see the full color
Wow.
Fellini on the big screen. That's a good theater going memory I have for sure. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. Eight and a Half is another one of my all-time favorites. It was a huge film to me. It was anything that was like innovative and different, and just, I mean, the compositions in that film,
Yes.
everything, everything about that film
Yes.
is just so exciting. For
Yes.
the first time you see it, you might be confused, or definitely confused.
Yes.
Um, but that's another huge one because I'd seen La Dolce Vita first, just because, oh, it's I know Fellini's someone I should see, and you know, uh, Marcello Mastroianni's so cool in the suits in Italy, and she's gorgeous, and they're running around and
Right.
smoking cigarettes and wearing sunglasses. But Eight and a Half was a whole other beast, and it was just
Yeah.
like that's on the highest echelon for me too. I think it's an amazing achievement.
Wow. I'm so glad you mentioned that film. That was a film I saw also when I was young. I couldn't stand it. I had no idea what was going on. I was confused as all heck. But then as I
Hmm.
grew older, and I think also I was gaining in years, and I don't know about wisdom, but I was gaining in years and experience and the like, getting older, settling down, etc. I really fell in love with the film so much. And you're right, it's up there. I think for me, I don't know. It's this thing where, like the Saragina's Rumba, for instance.
Hmm.
I will never tire of that scene, or Sandra Milo saying, I love the word that she says, which is "sagulp." These words in the language that make no sense, and they're acknowledged that they make no sense, but these sort of she has this way of creating her own language in the film
Hmm.
Eight and a Half, which is astounding, absolutely astounding. And I love to I don't know if I'm going to spoil. I love how it's the same gesture that Marcello Mastroianni gives us in La Dolce Vita is the exact same gesture that in a very key sequence in Eight and a Half, the mother figure, he reaches out to the mother as they're walking away in the sort of the carnival sequence, and she essentially keeps walking away, and she kind of goes like this. So it's like the
Ah,
same gesture. I like, it's almost like its own like spiritual sequel, and it's like, the same gesture that he
beautiful.
gave to everyone. It's kind of, come back to bite him in the
Yes.
where, that kind of thing. So I love that, things come
Wow.
around even in a sort of Fellini film, but.
Great
Uh,
observation. That's
Oh,
awesome.
no, 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 no. I think it's yeah. You're right. Eight and a half is it's just it's tops, absolutely
Yeah.
tops. They can't. And it's so unapologetic in
Mhm.
its. This is Fellini, who Fellini is, and how he views the world and people. So,
Mhm.
like, love it or hate it, this is what it is, and so.
Yes, yes.
And gosh, one of a kind experience. I'm so glad you mentioned that film, my friend. That's really fantastic.
I mean, it's an
Uh,
obvious film, I suppose. I mean, it's, considered, it's beloved by everybody, I guess, but for a good reason, for a good reason.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well done, well done.
And
So,
Nino
oh,
Rota,
good.
the
Yeah,
score.
yeah. Gosh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes. The Roomba. Although I think the Roomba music is not available on the soundtrack, at least the soundtracks that I've been privy to. So, which is
Oh,
a bit of a shame. But the Roomba music I don't know if it's even available on recording. I'm not sure, but
oh wow.
yeah. But that's my favorite. Yeah, I love that sequence. But
Oh yeah.
you mentioned Juliet of the Spirits, watching it in the movie theater, when you were in L.A. What
Yeah.
were some of those other movie theater experiences that were special for you in your life, if you
Well,
don't
you're
mind
in
me
LA
asking?
now, right?
Yeah.
And I loved seeing you go to the New Beverly Cinema because I lived a minute away from there for a year.
Oh,
I
cool.
later lived on the other side of the hill, in Sherman Oaks, if you know where that is.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but the New Beverly Cinema was a place I've been to many, many times. along with Amoeba Music, I know you've been to, and
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
great. I mean, there's a funny cinema experience. I don't even know if it's still there, but the Cinerama Dome
Okay.
uh, on Sunset. It's like a big white globe. You
Yeah.
can't miss it. And they had a massive screen. And I went to see 2001 there. This is like 1995 probably. And for that screening, we had, um, you know, we were, allotted specific seat numbers that we had to sit in. And I went to my seat, and there was a man sitting in my seat, and I had to ask him to move. And that man was John Singleton.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was with his son or some younger gentleman or boy, and I had to, excuse me, sir, I think you're in my seat, And he got up and shifted, shuffled off to the next row or whatever it was. And it was embarrassing yet amazing. That's living in LA.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's really incredible.
I think
I was in yeah, that was. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please, please.
no, now I'm just thinking of did he do Shaft? He did Shaft. I mean, boys.
That's right. Yes, yes. With what's his name? Samuel
Sam
Jackson.
Jackson,
Yes,
right?
which I saw in the theater. And what's his name too? Why am I forgetting? He's in that too.
I never saw the new Shaft.
Okay, okay. Okay. So it'll come back to me. But yes, yes, yes. John Singleton. That's right.
But I'm just
That's right.
flashing back to another movie experience. There was at the Magic Johnson Theater in LA. They had, like, it was either back to back nights or one week after the next. We saw Shaft, the original Shaft, the original Shaft, and Superfly, and then the next
Oh
week was
wow,
Foxy Brown and Coffee with Pam Grier. Um,
wow.
and that was a good time when the crowd was in the mood for it, and you wanted the crowd to be vocal at screenings like that, as opposed to, if you're seeing something more serious. I like a quiet theater, but this was rowdy and fun, and I don't know. I just thought of it, linking it to John Singleton. No, I'm referring to the earlier Shaft, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh wow, that's great.
But I'm sorry
That's
to
really
interrupt.
cool.
What were you
Oh,
gonna say there?
oh no, no, not at all. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh, it's for it's lovely. I'm sure it'll come back, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Well, this is oh, this is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The kind of how should I put it? The movie theater experience, I think, is also very important. So,
yeah.
and as you say, you're still are you still able to go to the movie theaters even nowadays?
Yes. I guess the last time I was at the theater was for Killers of the Flower Moon.
Hmm.
Um, that was a difficult experience though, because there was a Taylor Swift film
Oh
playing
yeah,
next
yeah,
door. And
sure,
so
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
watching Killers of the Flower Moon, and I just hear her songs, and sort of the bass kicking through our theater throughout the duration of the Scorsese film. So it was a bit distracting. Um,
Oh,
and I'll always advocate to go to the theater to see a film. I love that experience just from my childhood, and that nostalgic feeling. But there is something to be said for being at home and being, in a quiet environment where you can really focus on the film. If you're that kind of person, I'm an active viewer, as you are, and I really want to pay attention to what these artists have given us and put on the screen. All of the departments involved in filmmaking. So I'm really, I want to see everything and not be distracted by, different things like chatting or whatever. Um, so they both have their pros and cons, being in the theater or being at home, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I hear you. I think I was when I was younger, I was very strict about my theater going experiences. I'd always be sure that I was on time. I didn't want any distractions. I'd always be there,
Mhm.
always be there, and not want to miss anything. But I learned that I think I'm not capable of doing that anymore. So I'm a bit more relaxed in terms of my movie watches in the theater, and also that goes to for any kind of distractions. I'm when I was younger, those bothered me, but now that's fine. I guess so I'm okay with like someone like a huge silhouette of some person sitting in front of me and the giant head.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, yeah, that's fine. I'll that's okay. And that's not a problem. Or, but
Yeah.
because I remember, I think the film, the movie theater experience that did it for me was the film Titanic. And I mentioned this, I might have mentioned this before, but I watched the film Titanic in the theater when it was released, right, in '97 or something like that. So,
Hmm.
um, but it's a very long movie. But I was unfortunately about maybe a third into the film, I had the urge to want to use the restroom, right? And so but I said, no, no, I can't leave the theater and then go into the restroom and then come back.
Mhm.
So I just said, no, I'm going to stay. And I said, I don't know. I didn't check my watch or anything, so I didn't know how much of the film was
Yeah.
left, but there was a lot. There was like, I don't know, maybe the 2/3 of the film remaining or something like that, which is a long, 3 hour plus film. So, and not just that, but especially in the second half, I'm sitting there very, very, very uncomfortable
Mhm.
as the minutes pass, and you're just watching this film with all this water
Yeah.
splashing and breaking through walls and like water, you know, just breaking things and things. I
Yeah.
couldn't stand it. It was really quite. It was really, really
Yeah.
painful. So I decided,
Oh, that's
okay, from this
very
point on,
funny.
I'm not gonna. If I have to, if when nature calls, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
ignore it. I'm just gonna go and come back and just enjoy the rest of the film. So,
That is
so that was a
very
lesson
funny.
learned. It was a
That's the
very, very
worst
painful
film when you're
experience.
trying to hold it.
It
The
really is.
water
It's
splashing.
yeah, exactly. And then they're just jumping in and out and breaking through windows and things like that. Oh my
Yes.
goodness, it's terrible, absolutely terrible. But okay, but
Oh,
it was.
that's
I mean,
very
I'm glad I
funny.
saw Titanic. I'm so glad I saw Titanic in the theater. Yeah,
Oh my
so
gosh, that's very funny.
oh, it's terrible, absolutely terrible experience. I mean, it was a great, great movie experience. I will never forget it. But
Well, it's a great
uh,
anecdote now. It's a good, that's what you get out of it.
yeah,
It's a good
exactly,
story.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
but I don't let that bother me anymore. So, unless the Titanic thing happens. But oh, this is. Are there any films on the horizon that you're excited by? Either maybe they don't have they can be new releases. They don't have to be maybe films that are on your radar that you are excited to see, haven't seen yet, or anything at all.
Yes, of course. I mean, I have a list of many, many films, like literally hundreds of films that I want to see that are from the past. But upcoming, if you know Yorgos Lanthimos,
Yeah.
um, I really liked his earlier films. I really liked Dogtooth. I really liked
Mm.
Alps and The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer. I enjoyed. I wasn't the biggest fan of Poor Things. Maybe it'll grow on me
Mm.
over time, but I know it's an unpopular opinion, perhaps. But Poor Things was not my favorite. But he does have a new film coming out in June called Kinds of Kindness, and it
I heard
is,
about this. Yeah.
yeah, I just saw the trailer, and I think it's set in contemporary times. So, I mean, I'll see anything he does. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I don't. Did you see Poor Things?
I haven't yet. No.
Um,
I've heard
well,
many things about it though. Yes.
yeah, I would advise check out his earlier works, which I'm sure you have.
Yes.
But the ones I named, I like those a lot. Um, what else is coming out? I mean, that's the one that's on my radar right now. Yeah, that's the one. I
What
just
about
watched
other
one of.
film? Like, oh, please, yeah, go for it. Go for it. Sorry, yeah, please,
No, I'm just thinking. The film. Well, now I'm just thinking of movies I watched recently that I love that we should talk about, like
please.
A Long Day's Journey into Night by Be Gone.
Oh, yes, yes, of course, yes,
Yeah, you've seen that, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing.
Me too.
His Kylie Blues I checked out as well, and that also has
Oh,
a
yeah.
very long, like 45-minute take, and so he's got a very small filmography, so he's just starting. So I've gone through and looked at his short films, and I think he's one to watch for sure. Visually, set design, very poetic. He infuses his own poetry into the films. Um, yeah, that was a very, very cool one. I like to drive my
Cool.
car a lot. Just
Oh
thinking about
yes.
recent films, Drive My Car, I thought was excellent. That's the kind of film I would like to make. Um, yeah, I mean, there's so many. I don't know. What are you looking forward to?
Oh gosh. I guess what am I looking forward to? I guess I'm not the biggest. I don't have the biggest wellspring of knowledge when it comes to what's upcoming. I really should try to keep up with all the news, but it's hard for me to keep up. But I suppose things that kind of just come my way. Let's see, what am I looking forward to? For example, I'm not sure if I'll be able to go to the theater to watch it, but I'd love to see. I've heard a lot about this film. Um, it's a horror film. The first Omen. I'm a
Oh
big
yeah.
horror film fan, and this is I didn't realize that it was connected to the Omen films until a few days ago. So I really those are another set of films that I watched growing up. Also in the recording off of the VHS or off of TV on the VCR, and
Yeah.
then in EP mode, and then taking the tab off so it doesn't
Yes.
accidentally record over.
Yeah. The
So those
EP
are the films
mode.
that yeah, so you can get fit in
Get the
6 hours
longer,
instead of
yeah.
two. Yes, yeah. I need
Yeah.
you sacrifice a little bit of quality, but that didn't matter. You got
Yes.
the volume there, so that was it for me. It's the volume. So,
Yes,
but
yes.
yeah. So the Omen films I watched a lot off of TV, and so I'm a big fan of those films, and so it intrigues me to figure out what this new film is. So I might go and see that. It's not a family film, so I might go by myself. But
Yeah.
that's I think it's opening today, but I'm not quite sure. But
Oh
that
yeah.
might be something. And then what else? What else is there? I suppose. Um, I suppose they aren't new films, but I haven't had a chance to see the restoration releases of the films of this filmmaker named Edward Yang.
Oh
But
yeah.
apparently they're making the rounds. And apparently it's only time. It's just a matter of time before they get their own physical media release somewhere.
Oh
But
yes.
yeah, Mahjong and Confusion. These are
Yes.
films in particular that I've seen before, but I've never seen them in restoration quality. So I'm looking
Yes.
forward to the day where I'll be able to see those.
Or
Maybe on a home. Oh, please, yeah, go
home.
ahead. Yes,
Yes, a film I love. I mean, I know A Brighter Summer Day is a very, very, very special film to you, and
yes,
it is, it is definitely next level. It
yeah,
is so rich, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to say, you know, that is on the highest level. If you wanted to see a great film, Yee Yee, of course. But the one I really
yes,
love is Terrorizers. I think
yes,
Terrorizers is so fun. It's such a fun little mystery, little.
yes,
I
yes.
really like. I don't know. I don't. I don't know. Forgive me. I don't know if Criterion has released Terrorizers yet, but Criterion, Sarah Habibi, if you're watching, Eric Stillman, like, please hire me to do the cover art. It's my dream to do the cover art for a Criterion release, and Terrorizers would be amazing.
Oh my goodness, my goodness!
Right.
Please, oh goodness, yes. Terrorizers, I don't think has been released on a physical media, at least as the time of this video, anyway. Um,
Okay.
on a Criterion release, it would be great if it did. I love that film.
Yeah,
I
me too.
absolutely love that film. That and you're right. It's a mystery. It's a mystery film as well. You're absolutely right. And it's just what's going on in these stories?
Yes.
How are they connected? And you real oh my goodness, it's like this and wow, so that kind of thing. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Not
It's
to
so
mention the
enjoyable.
application of the music, etc. Well, yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that film, Terrorizers. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I
And
love
oh,
it.
this is so cool.
He
And
did great.
I need to ask you. I need to ask you. You mentioned before, but and I said you said that it's probably impossible. But I guess I mean I have to ask. What are some of your favorite Beatles songs?
Oh my gosh. How dare
shall we go?
you?
Shall we go by album? By like I don't know, a UK release? I don't know.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I know that's the thing. It's like even the question, "What are your favorite movies?" Like telling someone like if someone had never heard of the Beatles and you're like, where to begin, like telling their story
Yeah.
and favorite Beatles songs. Oh my gosh. Or I mean it's oh my gosh, it's that's a daunting task, Daisuke. Um, Strawberry Fields Forever
Wow.
um, comes to mind for so many reasons. I mean, that's such a hard question. My God. I mean, can I
Okay.
say the
Maybe
entirety of
what
the
would
White
be?
Album? I mean,
Sure, sure. Yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. If what would you what if you had to if you were to put on a Beatles song right now, what would it be? That might
oh
be an interesting
wow.
question.
Um, if I were, let's see, Across the Universe is a nice one. Um,
Yeah,
um, I mean, I could rock out to Paperback Writer, Lady Madonna. I could do, you know, I mean, oh my gosh, it depends on your mood. If you're in a poppy, happy mood, put on Penny Lane. If you want to go darker, put on Tomorrow Never Knows. Revolver is a near perfect album. I mean, they all are,
yeah.
but Revolver is one of the best albums. My gosh,
What are some of your favorite songs on Revolver, by the way?
oh my gosh, the knock. You know what? Uh,
Yeah,
Andrew Bird can sing. Um,
yeah,
but you can even go back to the early stuff, like the simplest yet still most effective chorus of "I want to be your man, I want to be
yeah,
your man, I want to be your
yeah,
man, I want to be your man." That's the lyrics of that, which I
yeah.
know you find funny too.
I
Um,
love that song.
Revolver, yeah. And I'm a huge Beach Boys fan too, and I love the back and
Oh,
forth
good for you.
between like, I love
Right,
how they would make Sergeant Pepper, so
right,
they would make Pet Sounds, and they would make
right.
this, and they would make Smile. Um, yeah, so I'm halfway through the Peter Jackson Get Back documentary. I don't know if you've begun
Yes,
that
yes.
trek.
Yeah, yeah. How do you feel about that, by the way?
I'm pleased just to have something new to look at,
Okay.
and it's such high quality. I mean, Let It Be was the film I had recorded on VHS off of TV, and there was commercials and whatnot, and the quality was horrible, especially as it aged. So it's insane to see this in such high
Good for you.
definition.
Yeah. Yeah, I know
Um,
how yeah, I remember the days where Let It Be was impossible to find. You had to
yeah,
go, well, yeah, to some place, like drive an hour away or something like that to some video
yeah.
store to find. Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm glad we have the
It's
same
yeah.
references and upbringing. I'm glad you understand that plight.
Yeah, yeah, I do, and it was tough, you know. I mean, Magical Mystery Tour. I don't know how it was almost a miracle that I was able to watch it as early on as as I did. But I think I was too young to see when I saw that. I just had no idea what was going on. It was
Yeah.
just I was just um, I was fascinated by Miss Winters. You know, what is it? Good morning, Miss Winters, Miss Winters, Miss Winters. I was very fascinated by her. But it's just what is this movie? I wasn't
Yes.
prepared for it. But according to Paul McCartney, people like Spielberg, they studied it in film school. So I don't know,
Oh, does he
right? So
say that?
according in the Beatles anthology, when he's talking,
Oh,
I forget
yes.
when the Beatles anthology was released, but when they went to the Magical Mystery Tour part, people's like, oh, people, yeah, they said, it was a terrible mistake or whatever, and but then Paul McCartney says, well, I read later that people like Spielberg, they
Yes.
studied it as an art film. It's like, really? It's like, I don't know. Okay, okay, it's all right, great, but that would have been, but maybe he did, and I'm not sure, but it's great, it's great. That's also the same one where it was early on. Who thought of the Beatles wearing the leather, getting rid of the leather jackets and putting on suits? Was it Brian Epstein? Was it Paul McCartney? I don't know. I always forget
Right.
that. But according to Paul McCartney, it was Paul McCartney. But anyway, I
Oh
love the Beatles. I
gosh.
love the Beatles so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Yeah. Beatles
anthology
anthology is
was
great.
it was such a thrill when that came out. It was first on television, I
Yeah.
remember, and it was so exciting.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite
Yeah.
McCartney quotes from that is they're talking about the White Album and they go through everybody, like maybe even including George Martin. They say to Ringo, like, Ringo's like, oh, it's a double album, there's a lot of information. And they
Yeah.
cut to George Harrison, and he says,
Yeah.
it's like 30,
Yeah.
40 songs. We should have cut it down and
Yeah.
just made it one good album. And then they cut
Yeah.
to Paul, and he's like, "It's the Bloody Beatles' White Album."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
enough
Shut
said,
up. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yes, that's right. I remember. Yes, yes, yeah. It's great. It's sold. It's a Bloody Beatles White Album. Shut up. And then it cuts to
yes.
the guitar on Revolution. Right? Yeah, yeah. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely perfect. Yeah, I love the quote too in the where they're talking about um, the when John met Yoko Ono, and that was being right. The band were talking about that for the first time, and they're talking about the Naked album cover, and showed it to Ringo,
Yes.
and Ringo says, "Oh, you've even got the times," and I love his reaction. Or like the bit where they're going to India, and Ringo saying, I packed. Like I packed a suitcase full of Heinz baked beans or something like that.
Yes.
So there's a plug for you. I love that.
Yeah,
Oh gosh. Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, you're a fellow Beatles fan. Well done.
and he
Well
went
done.
home
You know
early
your
because
Beatles.
he went home early because he didn't like the food and all that, yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
And
right.
Magical
Yes.
Mystery
Yes.
Tour was I think it was released on Christmas Day on television,
That's right.
and
Or
that
Boxing
is
Day or something.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
Boxing Day perhaps, and it is
Yeah.
not a family sitting around the TV kind of movie, you know? It
That's
is
right.
just this
Yeah.
surreal Salvador Dali, Louis Buñuel
Yeah.
morass of a film.
That's right. And then the spaghetti on the plate, which looks like
Yes,
a like laundry just covered with tomato sauce. I don't know what's
yes,
going on.
yeah,
It's amazing with
with a
John Lennon's face.
shovel, yeah,
Yeah, exactly, and that smile, that grin, which
yes,
is I think rivaling anything in Batman's Joker universe or something like that. It's really
yes.
fantastic. Yeah, but it's just it's a real a mind bender,
Yeah,
as the Beatles might say. So.
and
Oh, well done.
look
Oh,
how much they gave us in 7 years, look how much they gave us,
that's right.
and their
That's
different
right.
looks going from the mop tops to the long hair, etc., Sergeant Pepper, all the different looks, different genres
That's
of
right.
music, 300 perfect songs. I mean, I always wondered if they were people from the future who came back and scooped up all the good songs that have ever been written and claimed them as their own, you
Mm,
know? But I also love the films
yeah.
Help. I love Help and I love Hard Day's Night, but Help, I think, is an underappreciated, excellent
Oh,
film
yeah.
too. It's so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. It's great. Great. Right. Eleanor, I was going to say Eleanor Rigby,
Yeah,
Eleanor
yeah,
Braun, right? And then,
yeah,
right. And I love the line when they're doing the curling,
yeah.
and the one of the bombs is in one of the little stones there, and he's like, "What is it? Is it George?" It says, "Oh, it's a fiendish thingy."
Yes.
It's a fiendish thingy. So I love the phrase fiendish thingy because of Help. That's great, great.
And they had
Yeah, I
their
love
own
that song.
language, they had their own way of speaking. It's
That's right.
amazing that they met each other. They were so tight. Only the
That's
4
right.
of
That's
them
right.
knew what it was to be a Beatle, and they had their own language, which is really, really,
That's right.
evident in Hard Day's Night and everything, but or
That's
their
right.
interviews,
Yeah.
and
Oh, definitely,
like,
definitely. I think also the one the Hard Day's Night. I might have mentioned this. I love the sweater that Victor Spinetti wears, and John says,
yes,
yeah, you look at his sweater. I always wanted a sweater
yes.
like that. And then there's a scene too in Help where, and I know you know the scene is where they're in the recording booth
Yeah,
doing a take on what was it? You're gonna lose that girl, right? You're gonna lose that girl, and then uh, there's a shot of Ringo, and like the light is so like luscious,
like
and the smoke, right? And just
yeah.
this is like right. Like anti-cigarette smokers' worst nightmare. This song, it's the most, and I think Roger Ebert or someone mentioned, sometimes there's obviously cigarettes and health hazard, etc. But there's just something about showing like this type of activity
Yeah.
in cinema, and I always, whenever I remember
Oh,
that, I always think of this shot of Ringo, right, with the smoke. My gosh, it's one of those
yeah. And they're
incredible
just
scenes.
locked in a
Yeah,
studio for days on end with just smoke
that's right.
billowing, but there is
That's
something to be
right.
said for cigarette smoking in cinema. I mean, I don't wanna
That's right.
promote anything,
Yeah, yeah,
bad,
yeah.
but Yeah, especially, I mean, you never see it in films today, but the old films, Fellini or whatever, In the Mood for Love, like you see the smoking,
Yes. Well
and
done. Yes.
it's
It becomes a part of atmosphere because
the
of the slow
atmosphere,
motion effect of right.
the
Exactly. Yeah.
haze, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, talking
Oh,
about
well done.
sweaters, the sweater I want is from the film Good Morning, Yasujiro Ozu.
Okay. Well done.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, I do. I do know what you're talking. I think so. I think so. I think I know what you're talking about. But yeah, they're. Oh, well done. Oh,
The
well
little
done.
boy,
Yes. Yes.
dude. Yeah, their style. I love that movie, by the way. Tokyo Story has become really popular lately. Late Spring is great. Um,
Yeah.
but Good Morning, I think, is a very fun. Maybe I gravitate to. I mean, like Terrorizers too is kind of like a fun one. Um,
Mm.
and Good Morning is just. I find that so cute, and they're like this,
Yeah.
and they're when they want to speak and they can't speak, and yeah, the little kid's wardrobe is very, very cool in that movie.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well done.
yeah, I mean,
Sweaters in cinema.
sweaters
That
in
that brings
cinema.
a good.
That's our side podcast we'll have
I
someday.
guess. Yeah. I guess it would be Freddy Krueger. Maybe it's an iconic sweater with the red and green there. But I don't know. What are
Yeah,
some other popular great sweaters in cinema? I don't know.
I've always wanted
Um,
Danny from The Shining's blue
oh
Apollo.
yes, sure. Yes,
Yeah,
of course. That's a good one. Or gosh, what there? I know there have to be some others, and I'm not remembering here. What are some other? I'm not sure. So
Freddy's a good
many.
one.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
iconic for
Oh, well
sure.
done. Well done. But good
Sweaters.
morning. Good morning. I don't. I think you're the first person I've encountered who's referenced the sweater. Good morning. So well done. I'm
Really?
incredibly impressed. Yeah.
I love that movie
Yeah.
though. Yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, well done.
and he's got such a,
Oh,
a massive filmography. There are tons I have not seen, which I'm ashamed to say. Some of these guys like Bergman, they made like 50 films or something, and it's hard to find them all
yeah.
and watch
Yeah.
them. And I mean, that said, Nobuhiko Obayashi also made
Yeah.
50 or 60 films. I've seen them all, I think, except for three or four I can't find.
Oh, good
And
for
I
you.
think,
Well done.
yeah, like even his TV commercials, I've watched everything, and he was a special guy. I think he did a lot of really cool artistic things for many, many years. He knows how to open a film for sure.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and one of his films that's very different than his, quirkier films that he's more known for is Beijing Watermelon. And I
Oh,
think that
yes.
film,
Well done. Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that film a lot too, and I don't see a lot of people speaking about that one, but I thought that was excellent.
Oh, well done. Oh, I'm very impressed. Yeah, Obayashi, I think, is getting so much attention recently in Japan, but especially outside of Japan, which I'm very happy to see. So well done. I'm
What
incredibly impressed.
that director is receiving attention, or that film, Beijing
Oh, the
Watermelon?
director's filmography overall.
Okay.
My sense of it is that some more of his films are becoming a little bit more available on say physical media in Japan.
Yes.
Some of the maybe quote unquote more somewhat obscure ones end quote, but
Hmm.
but there's I think a lot of enthusiasm for Obayashi outside of Japan, at least in some of the online circles that I'm involved with. So I'm
Yeah.
always very happy to hear that and see it, and you now as well. So
Yeah.
this is
I know. I
great.
want people to go beyond House or Hausu. I want people to go beyond that. There's so
Sure,
much
yeah,
more that he
that's
did
right.
that I personally find really exciting to watch.
Yes,
Um,
and though if you can say that a film like House is merely the entry point.
yes.
I mean, you're in for some, but there are a lot of interest.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's there are many different avenues here,
Yeah.
so it's a very rich journey, the Obayashi cinema journey. So,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
but oh, this is great, Danny. Um, I think let's see. I want to give a little bit of time for you just to maybe talk a little bit about some of the you mentioned a little bit at the beginning, but some of the things that you're working on, your art projects, anything you want to promote. But before we get to that, just a few final things, which is, what were some of those filmmakers? We spoke about some favorite films. Of course, along the way, we spoke about some filmmakers as well. But what are some of those filmmakers to you that are very important, whose bodies of work that mean a lot to you? I think we've touched upon a lot of them here as well. But so you can, of course, remind us of some of those filmmakers, or mention some that we haven't already.
Oh yeah, there's so many more. So many more. I like well when you mentioned your foray into stop motion animation filmmaking, I thought of Karel Zeman or Zaman,
Yeah,
and he, Invention for Destruction and Fabulous Baron Munchausen
yeah,
are films I wish I made. I think they're really, really, really cool looking. But guys I consider my favorite guys are like Andrei Tarkovsky. Um, he's so difficult to discuss. I mean, I would love for you to do a video series on his works, but that's such a Mount Everest to climb. Um, like William Friedkin would say, it's like the Mount Everest of, it's
Thank you very much.
you
Thank
know,
you. Thank you.
yeah.
Yes. 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 Citizen Kane. Yes, is the Mount Everest of film. That's the summit.
Yes.
Citizen Kane. Yes. Yes.
I love that.
I saw this film by Nicholas Winding Refn.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry I interrupted. Please go ahead. Yes.
Oh, that made my day. Oh my gosh. Please keep doing your impressions. I think they make people think,
Thank you very much.
Jeremy, where is Jeremy? Please tell Naomi to.
Thank you very much.
I
That
love
means a
that
lot to me.
stuff.
Thank you.
I love that
Thank you.
stuff.
But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Tarkovsky. I'm sorry. Yes, Tarkovsky. Yes.
Yeah,
So you were at yes.
Tarkovsky. Kiarostami, who I think I mentioned off the top, is one of my favorites also. Like the
Yes.
Coker trilogy blew my mind. How it became more meta with
Yeah.
each entry,
Yeah.
referencing itself and all that it really blew my. But same with a film like Sharon that he did, which is just
Yeah.
close
Oh,
ups.
yeah.
If you're familiar with that, just
Yeah.
close ups of women
Yeah.
in theater. I don't want to spoil things for people either, but of course, Certified Copy, Close Up, those films as well. But even his early films, like the little black and white short films he did, those are fantastic. From the beginning, he had a great photographer's eye. Um, so he's someone who came along and really surprised me and did great things. I think Ruben Ostlund is a filmmaker I
Oh,
like.
yes. Yes.
Triangle of Sadness is my least favorite in his filmography, his most recent, but Force Majeure was the first one I saw. But I like Play, Involuntary. Those earlier films I think are excellent. And they're very Mikhail Haneke. And I love Mikhail Haneke as well, like his early films as well, like Seventh Continent or 71 Fragments or Cachet and all those films. I love those films,
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, I could do Bresson. I could do Hirokazu Koreeda is my favorite guy right now.
Oh, good for
Afterlife.
you.
Afterlife is a film that
Yeah.
I've told 50 people, please see this. Um,
I'm glad to hear that.
Afterlife blew me away. Yeah, but I also love Shoplifters, Nobody Knows, Distance. All of his films. Monster. I mean, all this said, too, I like the trendy guys. I love Tarantino. I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I like the early films of Wes Anderson, too. Like a lot of those guys, too. The early Spielberg stuff. I'm a film lover. I love all of that. So I'll go back to Carl Dreyer. I'll go back to, the early stuff, too. Fritz Lang, F.W. Murnau. Like when we were starting this chat, I heard you whistling, kind of getting ready, and it made me think of Peter Lorre and M.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What was I whistling? I think I was. What was I whistling?
Just some nothing.
Was it? I was thinking I was whistling. What was I whistling? I think I was whistling the theme to. What was it? Just getting ready, and I think it was. What was I whistling? I want to say it was Alfred Hitchcock's Suspicion. I think. Yeah, I know. I mean, it was an Alfred Hitchcock film. I think it was the theme to Suspicion. I think, but yeah.
So what are your
Thanks. Oh,
Hitchcock?
I didn't realize. I didn't realize that. I was. I'm glad I didn't say anything compromising there. Like,
Yeah,
f this, f that. I saying I didn't say that. Okay.
yeah.
Good. Okay. Okay. I
No,
was
it's a
listening to
very
the theme to
very
Suspicion.
pleasant.
Okay.
Yes, very pleasant
Okay.
memory.
All right.
Yeah. Um, Carlos Regadas, I think, is doing cool films.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Post Tenebras Lux, I thought was really um,
Yes. Oh.
really cool, really different. Our Time, Silent Light. I knew him from
Wow. Yeah.
Japan.
That's right. Yes.
That film
Yes.
first, but his more recent few I love a lot. So yeah, there are tons of people. We could go on forever. We'll have to catch up
Oh, well done.
on other
Well
subsequent
done.
interviews.
Oh
But
God. And then this the uh, oh, this is Danny. This has been really fantastic. I'm enjoying myself immensely.
oh, me too. Me too.
Um, and I want to, but before we go, I don't want to lose the opportunity for you to sort of talk about anything you want to promote here. But I just want to say, it's I'm so glad we had this conversation. I mean, this is a kind of our first time. I mean, we've spoken a little bit offline, but not to this extent. So I'm I'm very, very happy to have been able to speak to you like this, and I want to be able to continue this. And there are a lot of things you mentioned today that are very, very close to my own experiences. So that made it even, an already pleasant conversation even more pleasant. So
Mm.
I want to say thank you so much for your time, and we should continue doing this as much as possible. I look forward to the opportunity to speak to you again. This has been a lot of fun, Danny.
Oh, I agree. Back at you. I had an absolute blast. I think we do have a lot of the same sensibilities, and
Yeah,
you're very easy to talk to, and you're so knowledgeable. So I could bring up any film from any era, and I'm sure we could have fun talking about it for a week straight. So, I mean, I definitely, message me anytime, and I'd love to continue our conversations. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface, and it's
yeah,
nice to meet someone who, you feel like is on your wavelength. So it's great. I'm really glad
yeah.
we have connected.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danny. The pleasure, it was pleasure and honor is all mine, truly. So let's continue that. But again, before we leave, I don't want to rob you of
I keep forgetting.
any
Yeah.
chance to. Yeah, so please, no, please. Where can people find you?
Yes.
Are there any projects that you're working on? Anything you want to give attention to? Your own artwork or any other project?
Yes.
Please, the floor is yours. Yes,
Yeah. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. Yes.
that's okay.
Once again, thank you for letting me talk about these things. Instagram is Danny Smith X, the letter X, um, and also DannySmithArt.com. You can see like literally 1,000 pieces are on there. I'm open for commissions. I'm doing 11 commissions right now, so I'm super busy and I love it. So send in more if you're interested. I'm doing artwork right now for Budweiser Stage, which is a big concert venue here in Toronto. So I do portraits of the musicians. So as you enter the venue, these portraits are kind of along the walkway. And that's a great gig. I've done it for many years. So I'm working on those right now. I'm doing a concert and t-shirt design, or poster and t-shirt design for a concert happening out east in Nova Scotia called Live at the Lakes. It's a big, huge, like a festival kind of thing with a bunch of bands. So I'm working on that. And starting May 29th, I will be the artist in residence at a Banksy show that's coming to Toronto, which I'm really excited about. I'm doing it for companies called Lighthouse and Starvox, and I did the same thing. I was the artist in residence, the same thing for them in the past, where they had a Van Gogh show, Frida Kahlo, excuse me, Gustav Klimt. They had a Bob Marley show. So I would be there live at the venue, painting, and then I would sell my pieces to the guests. And it's a dream job. So I'll be at the Banksy show if you're familiar with him. I'm a fan of his work. When I lived in LA, where you are, I used to like climb up on roofs. I have pictures of myself on rooftops, taking pictures with Banksy pieces behind me. And now I get the honor of
Wow,
working at his show and being a part of that.
that's so cool.
So May
Wow.
29th, if you're in Toronto, please come say hello. I'll be there. And yeah, I'm just very happy to be a part of it. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, oh, dang! Well, that you're going to be very well done. So many exciting things happening,
Yeah.
and it's what you love. It's gonna you're gonna be very busy starting around the end of May there. So,
Oh
wow! But
yes.
a good
Yes.
busy, a very good busy, I think.
Dream job. Dream job. It's
Oh,
dream job. Yes. I'm always very busy and I like to be busy, you know?
good for you.
The only negative is I don't get as much time to watch, these great films. But very happy to be busy, very happy to be it's not work, it's play. So
Mm,
very
mm.
grateful and looking forward to it.
Well, that's a really wonderful attitude to have. Really great perspective, Danny. So I wish you all the best. And I know I speak for everyone. I say we wish you all the best in all of your endeavors. And you're welcome back here anytime. And please, yes, I will leave all the information in the description box for anyone who wishes to find you elsewhere. And so I'll leave that information. So please check out Danny's work. If you're able to speak with Danny, my dear friends, yes, as you can see from the conversation, it's a really wonderful, wonderful time talking about movies and art and music and everything. So, Danny, thank you so much. Let's do this again. I really enjoyed it. So let's do a part two.
That
I look
sounds
forward to
excellent.
that.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you so much too. I look forward to it.
Thank you very much, Danny. So anyway, thank you, and I'll see you at the next one. So cheers. Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers.